Welcome. Thank you so much for coming out to the Whalen Library tonight, and thank you to everyone who's joining us online. Tonight, we are excited to have Piyush Khopkar here to talk to us about oxygen on Mars and the MOXIE project. He's part of the MOXIE and Mars 2020 Perseverance Rover mission, developing the tools to analyze mission data. Piyush has served as a NASA JPL Solar System Ambassador since 2016, joyfully sharing the excitement of space exploration through public presentations and outreach. He works as a software engineer by profession and holds a Master of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from the University of Missouri. Thank you so much for being here. I'll turn it over to you. One more housekeeping. I am recording this, so we'll be able to watch and share again. And if you are on the Zoom and you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat at any time, and I will raise my hand and voice it for you. Would you prefer that folks hold their questions till the end or interrupt throughout?
I'm fine either way.
Okay, well, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right. So, hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much for attending the talk in person. I was just telling her that this is my first in-person talk since 2019, because like all of my talks have been just on virtual, like Zoom. So it's really nice to be like people in person. So yeah, my name is Piyush Khopkar. I'm part of the MOXIE team. I work on the software part of it, and also work on the operations. Besides that, I'm also one of the Solar System Ambassadors. So a Solar System Ambassador program is a countrywide program run by NASA JPL. And the idea is it's basically a group of hundreds of volunteers across the nation, and everyone kind of passionate about space, and that's what they do. They basically share the excitement of space exploration and all joy. So today I'm going to talk about MOXIE instrument. MOXIE stands for Mars Oxygen ISRU Experiment, which is one of the instruments aboard the Perseverance Mars 2020 Perseverance Rover. So let's begin. All right. So I'm going to first quickly give an overview of the Mars 2020 mission in general, and then we'll jump right on to our main topic, which is MOXIE. We'll see how does MOXIE work, how do we operate MOXIE on Mars, and then I'm going to talk about a few of the MOXIE runs we have done so far, and then we'll open the floor for questions. And again, like if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me in between, and we'll make it as more interactive.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Was MOXIE on any of the previous rovers, or was this the first rover that MOXIE was on?
No, this is the first rover. Yeah, so basically this is the first ever, so I'm going to talk about it as well, but this kind of instrument is, this is the first time ever we had such instrument on any Mars rover. Okay. All right. So let's first quickly do an overview of the Mars 2020 mission. So there have been like many Mars missions in past. Few of them were landers, few of them were rovers, few of them are orbiters. And the entire or the goal of every Mars mission is to every Mars mission has a goal, and then the idea is you try to accomplish that objective, and then every next Mars mission is kind of a designed based on the learnings from the past mission. So again, like the past Mars missions have followed the water and build on the knowledge of each other's knowledge and discoveries. So there's plenty of evidence that water actually flowed on Mars in past. We know that planet was wet and habitable once, and Mars had all the basic building blocks of life, which still exist on surface today. But then we want to answer the question, did Mars ever have life? So that's the goal of the Mars 2020 mission. There are 4 main objectives. 3 are more towards the ancient microbial life. So first is to study the geology. The second one is to study the astrobiology. Third one is sample caching. So the rover has a very complicated system. Basically, there is a robot inside a robot. So the basically what that does is it collects samples and then it puts the samples in a tube. And the idea is, well, not the idea, it's being done right now. What the rover does is it drops the sample on the ground. And then NASA has already started, like NASA and European Space Agency, they're collaborating and they've already started working on the Mars sample return mission. And the idea is to bring the samples back on Earth so that, like scientists can study the rocks or study the samples in more like precise way or more laboratory setting. And the fourth one, not the least, is preparing for humans. Because eventually we would want to go to Mars. So this rover is kind of doing a technology demonstration. There are two technologies, two instruments, or I would say two things on the rover, which are the tech demo. One is MOXIE, that's we're going to talk about, and the second one is the Ingenuity helicopter. I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but basically the idea was to test if we can really fly on Mars, and that has been proved since long. I mean, like since the rover landed, there have been like I don't exactly remember how many flights were there, but the helicopter has flown many times. Well, 54 flights. So the helicopter just done 54th flight, and then we are learning so many things from that. So the rover landed at JPL crater. This white circle represents the landing ellipse where the target area was for. And yeah, this is again like a view of how the JPL crater looks like. I'm not a planetary scientist in such, but if you see, like there are the valleys and ridges, and that's where like the image of JPL crater. All right, so let's jump on to MOXIE. So MOXIE, as I said, stands for Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. So basically, eventually we would want people to go to Mars. So let's send people to Mars. But would you like to have just one-way trip or both? Like right? Everyone would want to come back, right? So let's send people to Mars, but then bring them back home as well. So I think I'll like to do this in the audience setting. So let me ask you this question. What do you think you would need the most important thing if you are going to Mars?
Come on, guys.
Water.
Water's good.
Air.
Oxygen.
Air.
Exactly. So you need oxygen, but then why do you need oxygen?
Breathe.
Sure, and
Water.
okay, and because you want to come back, right? So why did I say that? Because when you have a rocket, when you're burning fuel, right, we don't realize that we have oxygen for free on Earth. Okay, let me give you a simple example. Let's say you have a candle, light that up, it will like just stay on. But as soon as you put a glass on top of it, it would blow up, right? Because why? Because there is no supply of oxygen. So when we are burning things, we don't realize, but we are basically burning oxygen. We are burning the fuel. On Earth, whenever we are sending a rocket, we get that thing for free. But then we are not going to get that thing for free on Mars. So Martian atmosphere has approximately 98% carbon dioxide. So there are two ways. When you want to go back as like for a Mars trip, you can, of course, like for you to breathe, for the life support system, you can bring oxygen tanks, not big deal. But when you want to come back, you would need huge amount of oxygen, and that will cost you a lot of money. So here's like some data. Let's say if you want to send people to Mars and bring them home. So sending propellant to Mars is extremely expensive. So MAV here stands for Mars Ascent Vehicle. So that would be like a vehicle we would need for sending the people to Mars and then bringing back home. So let's say it has a launch mass of 40,000 kilograms, and then it would need approximately 22,000 kgs liquid oxygen, and 1 kg on Mars, 1 kg of oxygen on Mars will cost $45,000. So that would become just the cost of liquid oxygen will be 1.02 billion. It's a huge money. So what do we do? So one of the idea is, as I mentioned, Mars has 97% carbon dioxide. So we can do a simple thing. We take the carbon dioxide and split that into oxygen and produce oxygen then and there. And the process of doing then and there, it's called as ISRU, or in situ resource utilization. Okay, so basically that stands for you're using a resource to creating another resource. Very simple example would be, let's say you are going on a camping and you forgot to bring the wood with you for campfire. What would you do? You would just go hunt and then bring the the sticks from the woods. So that's how you are just creating a resource from another resource. So that's what ISRU stands for. So MOXIE is a technology demonstration to validate if we can really do ISRU on the surface of Mars. Now, had I been given this talk in 2021 before landing, I would have said that it's a technology demonstration to see if we can do that. But because we are in 2023, 2 years has already passed. So with all the MOXIE runs, we have proved that this can work on Mars. All right. So let's see the objectives. So there are 5 main objectives of MOXIE. One is, as I mentioned, verify and validate the ISRU technology. The second thing is, right now MOXIE is just an experiment. It's very small. It's of the size of a car, small car size battery. But then we want to learn the things we are learning from MOXIE on Mars, and then so that we can design a full-scale ISRU based on the learnings from MOXIE. Third one is at least produce 6 grams per hour of oxygen. Produce oxygen with 98% purity, because you would also want the oxygen to be pure. And the third one, the last one, is run at least 10 times in 1 Martian year, which is approximately 2 Earth years. So this is the blowout view of MOXIE. There are 3 main parts of it. One is the motor, the second one is the slow pump or the compressor, and the third one is the solid oxide electrolysis, which is kind of a heart of MOXIE. So as I mentioned, it's about the size of a car-sized battery. It weighs around 14.14 pounds on Mars. It requires 300 watts. And then one operation of MOXIE is roughly around 4 hours. I'll tell you why. So the idea behind MOXIE is, or let's see how it works. So the motor kind of on the scroll compressor, when we start MOXIE, we basically sucks the carbon dioxide or the air from Martian atmosphere. And then we compress the sucked in air. We pass that to the solid oxide electrolysis, which is also known as SOXY, which really does the chemical reaction of splitting the carbon dioxide into carbon monoxide and oxygen. And then there is a sensor panel, which has hundreds of sensors, which measures so many things like purity, and then the current, the voltage, all the other things, the gases, because when we are doing the reaction, we are also producing carbon monoxide and oxygen. So we also want to measure like how much carbon monoxide we made, because that helps in determining the life of MOXIE, like how it's degrading and so on. So I think I've been talking too fast. So I just wanted to ask, like, if there are any questions before I move on. Go ahead. Yeah.
You had mentioned it can run 10 times in 2 years. So what next 1 times? So the 10 times it lasts a very long period.
Yeah. So basically, the primary objective of MOXIE was to run it at least 10 times. Okay. idea of running 10 times, because we don't run MOXIE every day. We just run it, as I mentioned, it takes, the run is approximately 4 hours. So let's say we want to run it today, well, at this time, then we would run it, and then after 4 hours, it will stop. We are not just continuously running it. So the idea of doing, or the goal of doing 10 times was, we want to basically run it in different time of the day, different time of the year on Mars. Because when we would want to have a full scale version of MOXIE, or like the MOXIE, or like the full scale system which will actually produce oxygen for real humans, it would need to run continuously. It cannot stop. So the idea of running it for 10 times was like, you gather enough data, you gather enough runs on different time of the day, different time of the year, when the atmospheric density is high versus when the atmospheric density is low, or let's say when there is a dust storm, and then you get a chance to run during that time. So these are all the like different runs when we would want to run. Now, although the goal was to run it for 10 times, but we did actually run it 16 times. So the primary goal, or like the initial goal, was to run it just 10 times in 1 Mars years, but then we ran it 16 times. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. You have any questions?
It says that it also exhausts carbon monoxide, like CO.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, so CO stands for carbon monoxide. Okay, so so it's more of like, let's say you burn something at your home, right? Let's say you are burning paper, right? The gas it produces, that's more of like the carbon monoxide. So you know, we have the fire alarms, or like the carbon monoxide detectors. That's the gas it produces, because you have carbon dioxide, right? So you basically split that into carbon monoxide and oxygen. So the idea is, carbon monoxide is harmful, right? Even for MOXIE, that's harmful, because that degrades the life of MOXIE, because it has batteries, it has cells in it. So you want to kind of create a balance, such that you're not, so there is no way you can, well, I don't know about that, I'll take that back. But basically, the point is, the reaction will give you carbon monoxide, but then you want to minimize it. You don't want to produce so much carbon monoxide, and that's why there are sensors which measures like how much carbon monoxide it produced in one particular run.
Does the carbon monoxide just go into the
Yeah.
atmosphere?
Yeah, so both the carbon monoxide and oxygen goes back into the air. We don't store it. Yeah, we just measure all this with all the sensors and everything. We just measure, we just collect data, and then it gets exhaled out in the Martian atmosphere. Good. Yeah.
But if we move humans there, are we gonna fill the Martian atmosphere with carbon monoxide?
No, so well, when for the human, like real human system, I think we'll need to we need to liquefy the oxygen we produce, and then maybe we can recycle back the carbon monoxide back to MOXIE, or like a system like that, and like we can reuse that.
The technical had been used in the military, such as the submarine, the same technical.
I don't know if this technology has been used in military or submarine. Yeah, I don't know about that. So yeah.
In ancient Earth, planet is the same as Mars. All of the carbon dioxide, no oxygen, but the planet, the plant, to create the oxygen for the Earth.
Well, I think, yeah, that's a very good question. So basically what you're asking is, if we can make MOXIE-like system and put it on Earth so that it can make oxygen, right? Theoretically, I think that can be done, but that'll be too costly. I think the short answer to that question is, it's more cheaper to plant more trees than making oxygen, than making MOXIE for Earth. Because again, like, number one, MOXIE here, it takes carbon dioxide, right? On Mars, you have, when you say 97% carbon dioxide, it means that, I mean, like, we can also like treat it as like it's almost like all carbon dioxide. So first you need to produce that much carbon dioxide, so that like you can run the system like that. one of the applications I'm just thinking of top of my head right now, maybe you can put that in like the manufacturing plants. But again, I feel like it's my personal thought that I think the ROI, or like the investment, return on investment in that case would be low, because you would have a lot of investment, but the return wouldn't be that helpful. I mean, like like there are so many other ways you can purify the air here on Earth, or like the simplest thing would be like plant more trees on Earth. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Is
Yeah.
Perseverance still operating?
Yeah. All right. So there are three main steps of MOXIE, or how it works. Like first one is when we start MOXIE, we first heat up the SOXY. So the SOXY, when I said the solid oxide electrolysis, it contains cells. So these all are cells in it. There are 10 cells in it. It's kind of a battery. So we first heat the system at 800 degrees Celsius. Okay. When we say we need to heat up the system at 800 degrees Celsius, and then after that, we start the compressor and then we collect carbon dioxide. There is a filter which is basically put outside the rover that basically filters the gases which we don't want. So like there are other trace gases like besides carbon dioxide. So we want to just have carbon dioxide in it. So the filter filters the gases and then the thin air. And then we start the compressor that compresses the air we have collected. In the third step, we pass the compressed carbon dioxide to SOXY, the solid oxide electrolysis. And this does the chemical reaction of splitting the carbon dioxide into oxygen and carbon monoxide. Okay. There is one more very important thing here is we are heating the system at 800 degrees Celsius. It's a very high temperature. Number two is when we say we are compressing, we are collecting the thin air with the compressor, the scroll pump. So both of these take a significant amount of power when we run MOXIE. So that's the reason when we are running MOXIE, no other instrument can run, because we basically take all of the battery. We basically consume all of the battery. But it's also more of an energy neutral in a sense that I'll talk about the MOXIE operations later in my slides. But then the idea is when we are running MOXIE, we basically the rover has a battery. And that battery gets charged with the radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Basically, it's a radioactive element. So it's the decay of the radioactive element, the heat of the radioactive element helps to charge the battery. So basically, when we run MOXIE, we charge the battery, and then when we are done with the MOXIE run, again we charge the battery. So the next day, when some other instrument needs to be run, they are at the same battery level the rover was before.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where does the oxygen go?
It just goes in the Martian atmosphere.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't capture it.
Yeah, we don't capture it. Yeah. So these are a few of the pictures of the actual MOXIE, which is put inside the belly of the rover. So these are the tubes. One tube is for the inlet and the other one is for the outlet, like taking the oxygen, carbon dioxide, and then exhaling out the oxygen and carbon monoxide. This picture shows MOXIE, which is along with its peers in the rover. And this is the filter assembly I was talking about. So this is the filter, this is the HEPA filter, which purifies the thin carbon dioxide.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How big is the rover? Is it as big as this room?
No, not this big room. It's more of a Mini Cooper size rover. So if you think of it, it's really big. Maybe if I'm standing here, from here to the edge of the table where you are standing, that would be the length of the rover. Length of the rover.
Okay.
And the width of the rover, maybe, I'm just guessing here. Okay, maybe from there up to until this point. So just little over this, the width of these two tables. And the height is also, I mean, like it's not, I mean, like it has a pretty good ground clearance because the helicopter, it was actually placed like at the belly of the rover. Okay, so when they dropped the helicopter, they basically dropped it on the ground. So they opened the lid and then it just got dropped on the ground. So it has a pretty good ground clearance and it's huge. It's huge. So I've been to JPL. So JPL every year does open house, where they would bring all of their rovers, like the all of the like the full size rovers for public display.
When did they do that?
It happens in summer. And yeah, the thing with that is, I mean, like I've been there as a solar system ambassador. I was volunteering for the event. That's how I got the ticket. But it's extremely competitive in a sense that they would open the window for ticket. It's free even, but it's ticketed because I think they might want to just limit the number of people. So as soon as they open the tickets, they just goes off in maybe like 30 minutes, or even I'm exaggerating, 30 minutes here.
It's like a
Like,
rock concert.
yeah, like it's within 15 minutes, all of the tickets were gone because I was just like trying that for fun because I know that I'm gonna get the ticket because I was volunteering for the event. But it's pretty cool. It's really cool.
They actually had a model of one of the,
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
they had a model of it, either Spirit or Opportunity, I don't remember which, or maybe it was even.
Oh, they have
at the
Perseverance at
Boston
Museum of Science.
Museum of
Oh.
Science. So
Yeah,
lost
they
it.
have this at Museum of Science. Yeah. There are few planetariums around. So have you heard about Framingham State University?
Yeah.
So there is a Krista McAuliffe
Yeah.
Center.
Yeah.
They had a model of the Curiosity rover. Not Curiosity, Spirit and Opportunity. They had that. I don't know. I mean, like it was back in 2017, 2018. I don't know if they still have it, but they had that. That size of the rover is size of a golf cart size, like the golf cart. That and both the Curiosity, the Mars Science Laboratory, and Perseverance is of the size of a Mini Cooper.
Does the rover go to different places on Mars to use this MOXIE thing?
So no, for MOXIE, it's more of like it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in a sense that we know that where exactly we landed. So the rover is not just going to drive way far that like it would just change the geology, or maybe like it's more of the height. It wouldn't just go away that like the altitude change. But to answer your question, the rover does drive. It goes from I can show at the end of my slide like the Mars Unity website where you can actually track where the rover is, like from where it landed and then how it got traversed, and all of the data the rover collects, including MOXIE, everything, it's available free for public. I mean, like the raw data. People can do like all sort of research they want. They can explore the data. There are all the pictures, all the raw pictures get posted on the Perseverance website. I think the time we get it here on Earth, it's like pretty quick. And I think let's see how many pictures are there. Okay, so there are total 536, over 536K images, total raw images. People does a lot of all crazy things, and like they would like process the image. They would make cool like panoramas or mosaics, but all the raw data is available freely. As I mentioned, MOXIE and all the instruments data get posted publicly for public use on the Planetary Data System website. Yeah. All right, and this is MOXIE Twin on Earth. It's also known as engineering model of MOXIE. So the idea is we basically have two MOXIEs. One is the flight model, which is on Mars, and the second one is the engineering model, which is here on Earth at MIT. Idea with the engineering model is on Mars, you have limited time. You have limited resources, like there are constraints, right? Because you just cannot run all the time. You just cannot do all the experiments or you would want to do because there are all the other limitations. But here on Earth, you have that flexibility. You can do whatever you want. So the main goal of the MOXIE project is not just to learn or run MOXIE on Mars, but at the same time to learn the things which we cannot do on Mars, but we can do it on Earth on this engineering model. So we have a laboratory where this engineering model is kept, and it's, you can simulate the Martian atmosphere. And then you can do all sort of experiments, like let's say you want to try if you can update the software, or like all the other experiments which you really cannot do on Mars.
Was this developed at MIT?
It's basically built, manufactured at JPL. It's developed by MIT in a sense that I think the principal investigator of MOXIE and the deputy principal investigator of MOXIE is at MIT. Yeah. So I worked with the MIT team on this mission.
You worked with the MIT team?
Yes. Yeah. All right. So let's see how we operate MOXIE on Mars. So the pictures in my next slides are more of like how do we operate rover on Mars, but I'll try to explain in the context of how do we operate MOXIE on Mars. Okay. So first thing first, a day in the life of rover. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay. The days marked basically is crossed. It says sol in the life of rover. So 1 day of Mars is called as 1 sol. It is approximately 40 minutes longer than Earth. So 24 minutes, 35 seconds, and 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 25 seconds. That's exactly the time one sol on Mars is. So I'm going to talk about how I have one slide later, how that 40 minutes impacts us. So hold on to that. So as I mentioned, like one Martian solar day is 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 35 seconds. This cool GIF is taken by the Curiosity rover. It shows the sunset on Mars. All right. So let's do this. So the rover is already on Mars. Okay, then it basically wakes up at the start of a sol or around Earthrise. Then let's say we want to run MOXIE. Okay, so we would send the uplink, or the uplink basically stands for you want to send information from Earth to Mars. Okay, so you have a bundle of file containing everything. So you want to run MOXIE, but let's say you want to do all the other things. So you would send all that bundle file containing everything that needs to be done for the next sol plan directly from Earth to the rover.
How long does that take?
Well, I think it depends, because it depends exactly like the position of Earth and Mars. I think the minimum travel time between Earth and Mars is 10 minutes. I think the maximum is around 30 minutes, if I'm not incorrect. Yeah. So once the rover receives the bundle, it carries out the sequence of activities it is commanded in the plan. So one simple command could be, let's say you wake up and then you drive for, let's say, 20 meters, 35 meters, and then you take images, and then at, let's say, 12 a.m. Mars time, you start MOXIE. Okay, so these would be the commands. Then you would run MOXIE for 4 hours, you stop MOXIE, and then let's say if there are any other things planned, let's say again you want to drive, or there is a robotic arm, let's say if scientists want to investigate one of the rock, or like take closer pictures of the rock using one of the instruments on the arm, then basically do that. So these would be like sort of the sequences you would send to the rover. So as I said, like the rover would drive, it would stretch out its robotic arm. And by the way, on the rover, there is a pretty cool model of Perseverance Rover. Basically, I'm not marketing Lego, but I have that model, and it's really cool. It's really cool. It's pretty detailed, and I really enjoyed making it. So I would basically recommend to you, or like everyone. Yeah, I was planning to,
Lego has a
Yeah, Lego.
Really?
Yeah, they just released it on August 1st.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool model. And they actually also had one model of the Curiosity rover. It's this big. The Curiosity rover is this big. It's very tiny. But the Perseverance one, it's actually this big. So it's I mean, I loved it. All right. So let's say in afternoon the orbiter passes. So the streak here, basically that's one of the orbiters around the Mars. So how do we get the data back? Right. So the rover sends the data, some of the collected data until this point to orbiter. And then the orbiter sends the data back to Earth. Okay. Then again, the rover continues to carry out the sequences of command in the plan, and then the rover may continue to working at night, but let's say most time it would just sleep or recharge its battery. So when we want to run MOXIE, right? So I said like we want to run MOXIE on maybe in day, maybe in night. So at this time, let's say when we ran MOXIE at night, so this time rover wouldn't be sitting idle. It would be actually running MOXIE. And by the time, like after 4 hours, it would then collect the data, and then whenever the next orbiter comes around, the rover wakes up, and then it again sends the data back to Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, the solar storm will be impacted the communications with telescope and
Actually, I don't know how would that impact. It might have an impact, but I don't have an answer to that question.
what's the 99 means?
This one?
Yes.
That's the orbiter. It's representing the orbiter. So the Mars has, as I said, like Mars has rover, right? Landers. But then there are also orbiters around Mars, like the satellites, right? So those orbiters are also doing their science, they're collecting the data. But what we do is we use the orbiter for getting the data back. So when we uplink the data, the data is typically uplinked directly from Earth to Mars, because the reason for that is you want to have minimum loss in the data, or you don't want any loss in the data, right? Let's say, because you said, let's say, you know, like I want to drive, well, maybe drive wouldn't be a good example. Let's say you said like, I want to run MOXIE for, well, maybe that might not be a good. Basically, you just send in a sequence, right? But let's say if there is a third party, well, like the orbiter in this case kind of acts as a middleman, right? Basically, for downlink, the rover is giving the data to orbiter. Now it's the orbiter's job to send the data back to Earth. Let's say if there is any loss, because you would find that. Let's say you were expecting, let's say for MOXIE, let's say you were expecting that the data should be, the downlink data should be, let's say 5 MB. But let's say you just got 2 MB. It clearly shows that there is some 2 MB of data which got lost somewhere. So for downlink, you always have the option of getting the data back from rover. But from uplink, you don't have that option, because you just don't know what exactly the rover got, right? So during uplink, the data is directly sent from Earth to Mars, so that there is less loss in that. So this streak here is representing the orbiter. So when the orbiter is passing, again, like across above the rover wakes up, and then again it sends the data to orbiter, and then from orbiter it comes back to Earth.
Is it one orbiter that does this? Or?
No, there are two or three orbiters. One is the Mars Express, then the Mars Odyssey is also there, and let's see.
They all take turns.
Yeah, so it depends like which orbiter is passing at that particular time above the rover.
And did they send those up at different times, or did they go with Perseverance?
As in,
When did the
orbiters start orbiting? When did they get sent from Earth to
oh, they have been there even before Perseverance.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, they've been there for a long time. Yes. So the entire, like, the communication is basically done by deep space network. So these are the big antennas around the Earth, basically around the globe, and they are placed in a way that at one point the spacecraft would basically, I mean, like, they can contact the spacecraft. Have you heard about Voyager? So Voyager spacecraft, Voyager.
Mhm.
So Voyager was sent back in 70s.
Years ago. Oh, yeah, yeah.
It still stalks to Earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the Deep Space Network.
Whoa.
And
When was
NASA,
that sent up?
I think it was back sent in 1970s.
In the 70s.
What does it tell us?
1977.
1970s.
Yeah. So there were two Voyagers, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2.
Mhm.
One was sent on September 5th, 1977. But the reason for telling you that is, so the NASA maintains a website, Deep Space Network, DSN Now, I think it's called as DSN Now. And there you can actually see which spacecraft is talking to which antenna, and then we are getting data from, you know, like which spacecraft. So you would see, like in the graphics, you would see like if the data is being sent or received. So you would see the waves going back. So it's pretty cool representation of, yeah, it's pretty cool representation of the data. All right, so as I mentioned, the orbiter records the rover data and relays it back to Earth, and that's called as downlink. So let's see the day in the life of a technical operations team. So like person who is working on the operations team, how would it look like? So it has like bunch of engineers, scientists, the rover planner, the rover driver. So once you send the data up, once you do the uplink, then the team basically reviews what was planned yesterday. Okay. And they kind of make the high level plan for the next day. And then provide the science context and like whatever we want to do for today. Yeah. So now we have the downlink. So the data that the rover sent, we just saw that the rover sent some data in the afternoon. So now it got relayed to Earth by the orbiter and received the Deep Space Network. Now, Deep Space Network is more of like the Deep Space Network sends the data back to JPL, or the ground data system, that processes the information. And it, because when the data comes from deep, it basically assembles into telemetry, and then, you know, like cleans out the not so much useful data as in like for the instrument in general, and then it passes the data to the individual instrument teams. Now for the downlink assessment, then the team kind of assesses the instrument, the rover health and safety status, and then it produces the data products. So for example, in terms of MOXIE, let's say we ran MOXIE and we got the downlink data. So we will get the process data from JPL, the ground data system, and then we would kind of all gather and we would look at the data. Basically what we want to see is, like on a very high level, number one is if MOXIE is still alive, because you don't want to break MOXIE there on Mars, because if you break it, then you're done for the day. Well, you're out of the business basically. So so basically we looked at the data, we look at the data, and then we produces like the plots and all the charts we want to see. And then it's more of the initial assessment, but then you have the data, and then the students and everyone kind of play around with the data, and then kind of, you know, like learn more from the data. But primarily it's more of like once we get the downlink, we would just take a like cursory look at the data just to see whatever we wanted to do, did we get that? And then we would kind of determine if MOXIE is still alive. So basically like status for if MOXIE is like ready for next soul plan. When I said we would see if we got the data the way we expected. So basically when we run MOXIE, we have multiple models, software models here on Earth. So we just won't send the data directly on MOXIE on Mars, because let's say you added, let's say just by error, added an error and, you know, like just miss something. And what would, it could basically break MOXIE on Mars. So what we do is we have software models, and we run the instructions first on the software models. Once we are sure that whatever getting the data we are getting it, as in like the model didn't fault or it didn't error, then we run it on the engineering model, the one I showed you. Then we have another like the flight hardware, where we again like run the sequences. And when everything looks good on all these things, then only we send the sequence to MOXIE on Mars. Just to ensure that we are not, number one, breaking, and then that also kind of gives us that what we were expecting and what we got. And that's also good learning because the software models are basically just made on the learnings from the past data we had, right? So let's say we were expecting something, but then we got something else, as in like it didn't break anything, but then we got something else. So that's a good opportunity for us to maybe like see why there's a delta. Maybe we need to tune the model, or we need to change something in the model, or exactly like, because model is still a model. It's still a software model, right? The thing there on Mars is the real thing. So it's more of like, what did we learn from there? Yeah, and then the team reviews the science data and then decide what the rover should do when it wakes up tomorrow morning. So it's more of like in the context of the rover, when like the entire like the Mars 2020 team is deciding, let's say they reviews the data and then they like everyone is planning what they want to do for the next time. So it's more of like just a picture of like how the sequence would look like. I think it's more of like you would start at particular soul and then you would do one activity, and then again at this point you would do another activity, and so on and so on and so on. Yeah, and then we target other settings for observations. Everything gets finalized and collaborations with the rover planners if needed. And then again, now we have the data products for uplink that's get generated, validated, reviewed, and again uplinked to MOXIE. On Mars to the rover. So once everyone says goes, everything looks good, then the instructions are again passed to the deep space network, and deep space network relays the data back to Mars. So one interesting thing I experienced when I was working, operating the instrument during working on the operation. So once the rover lands, for approximately 90 days, the entire team follows the Mars time. So basically you are living the Mars time. So when I said the 40 minutes, so that makes a huge difference. So what we would do is like everyone would kind of follow the Mars time. So the Mars time there's a time difference of 40 minutes, right? But it's not constant because that would keep changing every day. For instance, let's say you wake up, or let's say the Mars operation today started at 8 a.m. The next day it will start at 8:40 a.m. Then the third day it will start at 9:20 a.m. So that keeps on going like 40 minutes. So you would kind of be in a situation where you are sleeping throughout the day and then you are working throughout the night. And that's how it happened. So it would start maybe sometime in a day, but then at one point, everyone, like all the meetings, like the day meetings got cancelled, and then like everyone was just like sleeping throughout the day, and then start working throughout the night, and then again sleep in the day. And similarly, like the MOXIE, like the operation shift, it would start maybe 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or like 11 p.m. in the night, and then it would continue until maybe 7 a.m. and then people would just sleep. It was pretty interesting for me because I was doing it for the first time, but it's, I think, pretty cumbersome. Cumbersome as in like you get really tired because you are not used to that circadian rhythm of like changing that time, because that is changing. It's not that for 90 days you are just sleeping throughout the day and just waking up throughout the night. It's more of like that thing is changing. So that affects your health as well. But I enjoyed it.
Did you see the movie Goodnight Oppie?
Yes, I did that. I mean, like, I did see that, yeah.
It was really, if anyone hasn't seen the documentary, it's on Netflix, I think.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, it's on Amazon Prime. It's Goodnight Oppie, and it's the whole story of the Opportunity Rover.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's really good.
It's
They
really-
talked about this,
Yeah.
how that whole team had to work on Sol,
Yeah.
had to work on Mars time.
Yeah.
How
So,
many days did you do that? Did you live on that time?
well, I think because for us, we were not running MOXIE every time, right? I mean, like, we were not running MOXIE every day. So we were not required to do the operation shift every day. We would just mostly do it when we were running MOXIE. But for all of the team members, like who were, let's say, for the cameras, engineering cameras, right? It would just work all the time. So they would need to do the shift all the time. So I think it was done for 90 days. because of the COVID now, one thing here which is pretty, uh, 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 I would say it's a like feat in a sense that before COVID time, I mean, again, I think you might have seen that in the Goodnight OP, and the principal investigator, Dr. Mike Hecht, he has actually worked on previous Mars missions as well for a long time. So for the 90 days, all the team members would co-locate to JPL. Like it's more of also like team building, and then you would kind of like all learning the rover, like as like all doing the operations at one place. But then the COVID hit, and then everything was remote. So I think just few people used to go to JPL as in like the one who really needed to be there. But then the entire science team, as in like we never went to JPL as such, as like the MOXIE team never went to JPL. To put it the other way, we never like gathered even at MIT or Haystack for that matter.
That's crazy.
But because again, like there were restrictions going around, so everything was just virtual on Zoom, basically. So it was pretty interesting.
It's interesting.
All right, so the last part of my talk is more of the MOXIE runs. So the rover landed on in 2021. So once the rover landed, we had to first do like few aliveness checks of MOXIE. Number one, we wanted to make sure that the instrument is still alive. It sustained the trip from Earth to Mars, and specifically it sustained the landing. So after doing like few initial checkups, like it's more of like warming up the instrument. Then we did our first ever oxygen run, which was on 20th of April 2021. It was Sol 60 on Mars, and we ran it on 2:25:49. So 2 a.m. 25 minutes and 49 seconds. We made 6 grams per hour of oxygen. So this graph here shows that the warm-up time. So when I said like the MOXIE run takes around 4 hours, so out of 4 hours, approximately like 3 hours or majority of the time is just being taken for the system to heat up to 800 degrees Celsius. Once it heats up, so this is the warm-up time when we are hitting MOXIE. And then as soon as we start getting the carbon dioxide, like sucking the carbon dioxide, that's when it starts making oxygen production. And then we stop. So everything is basically like the entire process is, it's hard coded in a sense that you would send the sequence that you start MOXIE at this time, then you heat it at 800 degrees Celsius, then you would start the compressor, run it at different speeds, and then from there you run it for this time, as in like overall this time change the speed, and then you stop. So everything is hard coded.
The time S means seconds.
Yeah, it's seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have total done 16 runs so far, being the run on 7th August 2023 being the last run. So we just concluded recently that basically in general the MOXIE operations on Mars, that our mission is over. We made total 16 runs. We made 122 grams of oxygen. Again, like we didn't store it. It's just more for like we produced it and then we measured the purity and all the other stuff we wanted to measure. It ran total for 1213 minutes. Now this is excluding the time for heating the MOXIE. And total on an average we made around 6.10 grams of oxygen. One thing here, I think it's more of the time of the day. So if you notice, like some of the runs were done at night, some of the runs were done at day. So it's more of we wanted to vary like when we are running so that we can have data from different time of the day, different time of the year, right? Have the variability. One more thing. So there are a couple of microphones on the rover. One of the microphone is on the mast, rover mast. What we do is we record the compressor, sound of compressor when we run MOXIE. So this table, I'm not sure if you are able to see this, but this is for microphone when we use microphone. So what the rover does is when we run MOXIE, the microphone which is on the rover mast points to MOXIE so that it can clearly hear it, and then it records the sound of the compressor. So let's see how that sounds like. Let's hear. So this sound is pretty much processed, because the raw sound, which you can also like get it from the public, it's available publicly. In the raw recording, you would hear the sound of the rover as well, because the rover is also running, right? The computer and all the other instruments, or like basically all the other stuff are also running. So you would hear the sound of the rover as well. So this sound is processed in a sense that we have cleaned the noise, and this only has the sound of the compressor. So let's hear it. Oh, I'm not hearing anything.
Is the volume up on the computer? Yes.
Is it connected to speaker?
It's connected to this projector speaker. It's not good.
Wait. But I think it's coming from the laptop.
You can hear it on Zoom.
They can hear on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Can you hear it here? Okay. Yeah, so maybe I'll just stop for a second just to let you know that what you would expect or what to expect. So as soon as I'll play this, you would hear the sound of compressor playing. Then after a few seconds, it would speed up the compressor speed. I mean, like, we would increase the speed of the compressor. So you would notice, you would hear that speed as well. Then it would stay at that particular speed for a few seconds, and then it would come down. We would reduce the speed. So it just, I think it's maybe just a second or two. But it's 777, I think. Well, let's see. Gonna keep down. Further down. And that's it. So it's just like one of the small clips. It has been, as I said, like, it has been processed. We've cleaned the noise so that we can actually hear the sound of the compressor. So with that, I just have one more slide to show. So the MOXIE team, science and the MOXIE Mars 2020 Science and Operations team received this Group Achievement Award by NASA for the exceptional operation of the MOXIE instrument on the surface of Mars, and basically demonstrating the ISRU on another planet for the first time. Thank you. And with that, I'll just end my talk. Thank you so much for listening, and I'd love to take further questions.
Thank you.
Did you all really celebrate the day that you made your first oxygen? On
We
Mars?
did. I actually thought of putting that picture here, but I couldn't. I couldn't as in, like, I forgot. So we, as I mentioned, like, we were on Zoom.
Oh, you were on Zoom. Right?
Yeah, we were on Zoom. So everyone was just on the call, and then we just celebrated, like, as soon as we saw the plots. So it was very emotional. Yeah.
It's like you see those things at Mission Control, right? Where they
Yeah.
have the big screen and they all celebrate.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yesterday night, I had a nerve from VOA, Voice of America, that had reported your team's achievement.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And my question is, in your teamwork experience, what's the most challenge for you, and what the most enlightenment for you?
Well, I think the most challenge was preparing for things. Because when we were preparing, so when we launched, it's like the rover got launched in 2020, right? It landed in 2021. In that time, we were just all doing the preparation in a sense that we were just making the processes for ourselves. As in, when you do the downlink, you get very limited time. You get, I think, just 30 minutes. 30 minutes, or I think maybe an hour. So you get the data from on Earth, and then you would get maybe an hour to make that decision if the MOXIE really like ran fine or not. So we did a lot of practice rehearsals, as in like we just did a lot of dry runs, and not just we, like the entire science team, like the entire Mars team, like did all of the dry runs, because you want to prepare for everything. So the most challenging part was just doing the dry runs, because we would just add any random error in our data, and just to see if we are, like our tools are smart enough that they can actually detect the problem. Because let's say if you got let's say incomplete data, how would you determine that you got incomplete data, right? Because you would need to ask the team, or you would need to get the retransmit of the data. So all those things, I mean, like in my experience, when after I started working on the project, so that was most challenging, because doing the dry runs. The most enlightening thing was how everything went smoothly on the first run. I think so when NASA did the press release of that, so the PI of MOXIE, Dr. Michael Heck, said that it was like literally like a textbook run, exactly how he would have expected, or how we would have expected. Even for the operations, like the data, when we got the data, everything went smoothly. When we were doing the dry runs, right, we made the tools for processing the data. So whenever we used to do dry running, something would just go off. Like, let's say the tool didn't work, or if we missed something, or if we missed something. So that was like little, when we were actually getting the data from the first run, everyone, at least like I was very nervous, because I didn't want the tool I made like to be crashed in front of like 7 people, and on that, like on that particular time, right? I mean, I would like, sure, if you want to like break, sure, like do that some other time, but not today. But that was the most happiest thing, that everything went just fine on that one day. Well, later on as well. Yeah. And yeah, I think the most interesting part was the operations, as I said, like the living the Mars time. So as a kid, I've been following the Mars exploration, I mean, like the Mars missions since 2005 when I was a kid. I watched the documentary on National Geographic about the Goodnight Oppie. So the Goodnight Oppie is pretty new, right? But back in 2006 or 2007, the National Geographic did a documentary on how they made the rover Spirit and Opportunity. And I used to watch that, like I think I crammed that. I'm like, I know all the dialogues.
It was
So
really good too.
it was pretty good.
It
It
was
was
really
pretty good. It was pretty well made. So I mean, like I really wanted to work on an actual Mars mission. So when I got this chance, it was like, for me, it was like really a dream come true. So that was the most, I think, like happiest thing, at least like personally for me.
Oh, I have one question online. How is it determined what projects or equipment are put on the rover?
Yeah, so so again, like this is based on what I have read so far. So whenever NASA wants to send something on Mars, so they would do an announcement of opportunity. So they would, I think, have initial goals as like what they want to accomplish with the rover, and then everyone, like basically from around the world, scientists and engineers, put on their ideas. Like they basically present their ideas, and then I think they have the NASA then have like makes a selection committee as in like which instrument gets like get the chance to be on the rover. It also depends on all the other things because of the size of the rover, what's the mass of the rover it's going to be. So let's say you want to put some instrument which is pretty heavier and bulkier, and because the thing is you are sending something from Earth to Mars, so the heavier the rover is going to be, the more costly it's going to be, because then you would need more propellant, you would need the heavier rocket. So everything just goes exponentially, increases exponentially. So my understanding is more of, number one, what's the goal of the rover, what they are planning to do. Number two, if the dimensions or all the constraint they have, would your proposal fit in that constraint? And then after that, I don't know exactly like how they choose, like based on the science or, but I think for MOXIE, NASA wanted to do an ISRU experiment for a long time, and I think we got, so Dr. Mike Hecht and his colleague submitted the proposal, I think back in maybe 2005 or 6, and then they got it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, maybe I can show one quick thing here. Yeah, so this is the website I was talking about. So this is DSN now. Okay. So this says that in Madrid, Spain, there is this antenna number 56. It is talking to JWST. JWST is the James Webb Space Telescope.
This space telescope.
Okay. Then let's see. So in this one, the antenna at Canberra. So this one is basically talking to MAVEN, which is one of the orbiters around Mars. MRO, which is again one of the orbiters around Mars. So here you can actually see which dish antenna is talking to which instrument. Well, sorry, which rover or which spacecraft. And the next thing I wanted to tell you about is,
I have a question.
Yeah.
There are different wave. Is there the double wave and the single wave is different with the antenna?
yeah. So I think the double waves, since it's more uplink, it's both uplink and downlink. That's my guess. The single wave is, it seems like it's coming down. So this is downlink. So this is downlink. Here, actually, yeah, this is both uplink and downlink, because if you see this wave, the wave, the foreground, so it's going basically up, and the one which is forward, it's coming down. So it's both uplink and downlink. And the last thing. So on this website, this is the official website of Mars 2020. You can see how many sols it has completed so far. There is a pretty interesting rover blog. Then the one I was talking about, the caching. So it has collected total 18 core samples. This tells how many raw images it has collected so far. And then here you can get more information like the sounds of Mars. So we just don't record MOXIE. There are other things as well the rover have recorded. One of the interesting thing is there is an instrument called MEDA about the rover, which is more of the weather station. So we get the data and then it gets posted here, and which shows, if this page loads, like how is the weather at Mars right now. I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then this is the location of the Perseverance map. So basically you can see where the rover landed and then where is it right now. So yeah, there are pretty nice resources on this website.
So do you know what the plan is, where you said they were going to try to send something to retrieve those tubes? So
Yeah.
what do you know about that?
So, so that mission stands for Mars Sample Mission Return. So maybe we can quickly play it. So basically, the idea with the Mars Sample Return, we will send a rover on lander, and all the samples come to so this lander is basically landed, and then it will basically collect all the samples. And then this will get launched. Huh?
When we are happy.
Well, I don't know, but maybe sometime in the 30s. All right. Are there any more questions on Zoom?
No.
Right.
Did you like the movie The Martian?
Sorry, what?
Did you see the movie The Martian?
Yes, yeah, I did.
I figured you had to.
So, one of the instruments in that movie, it's oxygen generator.
Mhm.
I think so. Basically, that's MOXIE for producing oxygen.
Wow.
We can find many Mars projects nearby the local in the Museum of Science.
Yeah.
Explore the Mars, and also the VOA reports many exciting new find in the Mars. The water proof in Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think the Mars will be very focused to link the engineers, the scientists, and the people, the society?
I'm sorry. The Mars will be fine.
Be focused. To link the people and the scientists, the engineer,
Oh,
advance.
so you're asking if engineers, scientists, and everyone will be on Mars one day?
They focus on Mars, and they show their advanced technique for people, for society people to learn more about the
at the Museum of Science.
and your project.
I actually haven't been to Museum of Science recently, so I know that they have the model. I know that I think there have been few speakers as well from JPL or NASA talking about the Perseverance Rover and the future, like the MSR mission. I don't know any other resources as such across, but I think Museum of Science, I think as you were saying, I think they have made a pretty nice, I think, Mars exploration exhibition there, and I think you would explore and go and explore.
I don't know too much about the Crystal McAuliffe Center at Framingham State and what's available to the public there. Do you know much about that?
I think they have let's see, I think
there's some programs. I know
there is a program.
They do present them to schools and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure though, but you could look at Framingham University, because there's things available there, which
Yeah.
surprised me.
Yeah, one program I think I'm actually forgetting the name of the program, but I think it's more of like you can do the simulation of a mission control, and the kids would participate in that, and I think they would have like different activities. So they have that program, I think that I knew, but I would encourage to maybe check with the Framingham State University and the Krista Club Center.
Thank you.
Thank
again.
All right, thank you so much for attending.